Good evening and welcome to Stop and Recharge. We are delighted that you made the time to join us. This evening, we have a beautiful topic, the art of staying light. The word light can be a noun, an adjective, or a verb, and it can mean bright or not heavy, like a feather. All these questions will be clarified by our special guest. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She has been a spiritual student and teacher for over 40 years, born and brought up in Ireland. She came across the Brahma Kumaris in London and later moved to the United States to establish teaching centers. She is the director of Brahma Kumaris in Florida and currently based in Miami. She has dedicated to make spirituality available to all. She is an international speaker, teacher, and also active member of Image and Voices of Hope. She is a yogi who has maintained her highly discipline of Raha Yoga meditation for over 40 years. Her warmth and friendliness bring an instant sense of belonging to all who meet her. Welcome, Sister Veronica Mahiuk. It's my great pleasure to welcome you, but more lovingly known as Sister Wadi. Welcome, Sister Wadi.
Thank you so very much.
This is for you.
Another Veronica.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
So, even though I'm sitting in Miami, it seems I'm also in Toronto. And so very nice to be in Canada, where it's no longer about COVID restrictions or anything else, and particularly Toronto, where I haven't been in a very long time. So that was interesting what you were saying, Veronica, that it's a noun, it's a verb, and it's an adjective. All of these three things. We could elaborate and say it's also an introduction to my own self and the awareness that, yes, this is what I am, that I am light. And so there is an appreciation, no doubt, of the quality of being light. Although it would not, I think, be the first thing that someone might in their prayer or in their devotional practice would ask of some higher being, dear God, please make me light. And yet we know the feeling when there is lightness, and maybe even more so when there's heaviness. And of course, even at a physical level, when there's heaviness, we usually know that there's been maybe, overconsumption or a lack of exercise. And that this also applies, although we may talk about that physically, but that it also applies to a state of being, to a state of mind. And so one thing is the art of remaining light, but how to get there in the first place. And I think it would be the first point of our practice in terms of meditation would be the awareness. And awareness is a very important thing, is that I am in fact light. And I think if I were to implore a higher deity, saying that I want to be light, that entity would simply remind me or reflect back to me this is what you already are. You are light. Now, maybe a little more than a year ago, we entered a very difficult period on this planet of ours, and that seemed to affect everyone. And there were many words and concepts and ideas and images that came into our awareness that were not there before. And so everybody became conversant with certain words, even with mask wearing, which we all used to think was very specifically associated with people from Asia, because when there wasn't anything going on, they would still be in the airport and they would all be wearing masks. And we would think, oh, that's strange. But we no longer think it's strange. It's the norm. And I sometimes think too, in terms of spirituality or these ideas, whether it's lightness or peace or good relationships or meditation, diet, all of these things, there's the feeling that everybody should be aware of them by now. And that I sometimes feel a little bit redundant in sharing these, because I think, but doesn't everybody know this already? And I suppose at one level, there's a truth in that. And at another level, we all constantly need not only to remind ourselves, but others also to remind us of the bigger picture. And so the assumption that if you are with us this evening, then it's not just happenstance, and that it's not just because you didn't have anything better to do this evening, but that you are already on your journey, that you're already associated with spirituality, or you have a practice, or you have a discipline. And again, going back to what has been happening in the last year, have your worries increased? Have you found that the circumstances and the situations have been a heavy burden to carry? And I don't doubt for many, if we listed the type of situations that you may have had to go through, whether it was the health of loved ones or financial difficulties or job difficulties, so many things that you were very, you were in a state of stability with before. And so that instability is definitely something that will shift or lead you to a place where you lack balance. You're not quite sure of where you stand. And so, like everything else, and I know it's easy to say it, that everything happens, and although we're all affected, but for each one of us is a unique individual, and we will be affected in different ways. And the challenge or the gift that the circumstances will present will also be different for each one. And of course, from where I sit, leaving aside, as I say, the sorrow and the sadness that many will have experienced, but this turbulence, a little bit like this idea that you have in the Brahma Kumaris of a place of confluence where two bodies of water meet and rage and pummel each other before finally flowing as one into the ocean. Well, this time might be a little bit like that for each of us too, in that we can get caught up in the currents and the riptides, and we may be tossed about. But as long as we hold that thought that it will lead on to something worthwhile and will take me to a place of knowing or of understanding or of enlightenment that could not have happened. And so whatever's happening, it's like at some level, we're all complicit. We've all been involved. And so whether it's the state of our world or whatever, fine, I can see myself as the righteous person and hopefully doing some good in the world. But, you know, nature didn't get there by herself either. All of us contributed, or rather, it wasn't so much contributed. Maybe we took too much. Maybe we took more than our fair share. And so everything has to come back to a state of order, has to come back to a place of balance. And sometimes in order to get that balance, there has to be like a turbulence experienced. And so when I think of, you know, likeness, or what is this feeling that I want to have, what is a demonstration of it? And the image that comes for me is, in particular, a ballet dancer, male or female, a gymnast, an ice skater. And so you can watch and you can be amazed by the beauty and the grace, and not least when they do those lifts or they take off into the air like as if they had wings. And so as well as the lightness, or without the strength, the lightness wouldn't be possible. They could not elevate themselves like that. And so in order to achieve that wonderful feeling where it's almost like they're birds flying, then a very definite discipline is needed, a practice is needed, and there also has to be an understanding of various kinds of energies and how the energies work with each other and against each other, that will assist in that lift and those turns and everything that are so graceful. And so that then I think doesn't really need to be said, but practice is so important. Someone was telling me yesterday about advice which they gave to a friend who was going through a whole series of difficulties and problems. And she shared the advice that she gave, and I recognized that it was very sensible, is not unlike something I also may or may not have said. And at the same time, knowing that that friend of hers would go back into the world again, or the situation, and be under the influence of all of the energies and the vibrations and the attitudes in the past and her own karma, etc. And so to be able to even remember the advice that the friend had given her would have been questionable. And even if she had remembered the advice, where would she bring the strength from to actually manifest that solution? And so that's why I say that the world, it's almost like as if we know that we're stuck in a sense with entropy, that things are moving in a particularly downward trajectory. And yet we, like, I always think of one of the creatures that features very much in Irish mythology is the wisdom of the salmon. And you know, the salmon is moving against the current. The current is all heading in this direction, and the salmon, in her journey to get back to where she was spawned, she has to go against the current and even jump up over the rapids. And this is perhaps a little bit like where we are in the world today, is that everything has an energy, and that energy, with or without your permission, is going to affect you and maybe influence you. And you know those times when you feel heavy and you're going through you're scrolling through your memory bank to see what happened, or what was I thinking, or what was I dreaming that I'm feeling really off. And you really, in all honesty, you can't put your finger on it, because it didn't come directly from you, in a sense, but that you were influenced by the vibration or the heaviness, the sadness of the world that is, you know, caught up in its own misery sometimes. And so, as well as, and why we have this practice, particularly in meditation, is so that, amongst other things, we are getting a different point of view, that we are seeing things from a different perspective. And so in a way, it's like as if that higher source of energy is befriending us and is not only giving us advice in that space of silence and of peace and quietness, but is also showing us how to increase our energy so that then we can deal with both what is on the outside and no less so what is on the inside. Like the salmon, I'm on my way home. I'm looking for home. I'm looking for that respite, for that place of peace and of comfort. But it's like you have to go through various challenges, if you like, in order to get there. And so awareness is something that is very important. And if I'm interested in awareness, then it's like, okay, I've switched the light on. And when the light is on, then I'm going to see not necessarily what I choose to see, but I'm going to see everything. And that will be good. And it may be not so good. And that is in relation to my own self. Because for all souls at the present time, either they're clean, completely clean, or they are in the process of cleaning, right? And so have you ever been, you know, vacuuming or dusting or whatever, and you know, your mom says, switch on the light. In other words, how can you possibly see the dust and the dirt if you're in half light. You need the full light in order to see it. And so there are many stories from all traditions about how people were literally struck by the light. And in that light, there was realization and transformation. And so not necessarily a complete transformation, but at least the beginning of the transformation. And so likewise, you have other stories that will suggest coming into the light, but then getting a little bit lazy about being in the light or taking it for granted. And, you know, it just seems counterintuitive to say that once you're enlightened, that you can go back to being unenlightened. You know, each has their own degree of difficulty, but being enlightened, there will be the challenges, but there will neither be the sorrow nor the degradation. Whereas to move back again, to unknow something that you already know, is going to cause more pain. You know, it's like the story that I sometimes tell about, if I can remember it now without losing the punchline, of this race of people. And they, after a period of time, they would remove the skin. They were kind of like snake people, and the old skin would be removed, and then there would be a whole new skin, you know. So without the process of dying, they were actually referred to as the immortals. And so the skin changed, but they remained immortal until one fine day, one of these immortals, and again, in all these stories, it's always the woman that causes the problems, isn't it? It was time for her to divest herself of her old skin. And so she went down to the water's edge to complete this transaction. And the old skin was removed. And in her throwing it into the water, it snagged on the branch of a tree. And she headed back home again. And when she reached home, her child, not recognizing her, began to cry. And so what did the mother do? She couldn't, out of her attachment, no doubt, she couldn't handle the sorrow of her child. And so she went back to the river again, and she picked up and put on the old skin. And so this sometimes happens us on our spiritual journey, in that we have that flash of light, of realization, and we are in the light, but then the voices, maybe of those around us, parents, partners, significant others, like, what are you doing? Why do you want to get up that early in the morning? You know, why do you want to meditate? All of these questions, like, just hammering away. And so in order not to give them sorrow, I relinquish or renounce the light. And so will I get better by doing that? And not knowing that I will also be depriving them at some level too. Because many times when our friends and that harass us, when we begin to look inwards and come up with a discipline for ourselves. And they say to us, you know, why aren't you coming out to play anymore? They're not being critical of us. We might take it as criticism, but actually they're just checking to make sure that you're solid. Because, and when they see that you're solid, you know, and that you've embraced it and that you're even more lovely as a friend or a partner than you were before, then they're willing to dip their foot into the light as well. And so this is just one of the things that sometimes happens. We all know, and it was a flavor of our training this morning, that that it is there already inside each and every one of us, but it has been mixed up with so many other things, with life's experiences, with our karmas, with our gender, with our culture, with our religion, etc. And all of that we have thought, this is me, this is me. And then you come to realize that these things have their limitations as a way of defining you. And so this curiosity, if you like, spiritual curiosity, to see yourself in another light, through another light, with another light. Because I can get feedback from human beings, but even their feedback is going to be through their particular filters and their particular thinking or desires in relation to me. And this is why meditation and seeking that light is so important, because that light has no filters. There is nothing that obstructs the truth that that light is. And when it shines on me or it shines on you, you too will know the truth of your own self, at least in those moments, at least in those moments. But now I have a vision for myself. And yes, the work has to be done, you know, like the dancer, that there has to be awareness. All the while, there has to be the willingness to adapt. And the most important thing, I think, when it comes to lightness, you know, at any moment I can tell you a different most important thing, but something that's very important is acceptance, you know, and that is the acceptance of where you are at this moment. But that's not the end of me. I know I'm headed somewhere as well. And so when you're not accepting something and you're fighting with something, you're stuck. There comes the heaviness. Whereas when you accept something, then there is a possibility, having acknowledged it, having been aware of it, that it can even lead you to a place of appreciation, you know, that you may not have appreciated it to begin with. And I say this so many times, and that I don't doubt that many of you on here could tell me about things that have happened in your life that you fought or you resisted, you know, whether it was that you were going through a divorce or, you know, you had a serious health challenge. And yet when it was all over, you were different. And you know that, I remember somebody a little while ago and she had to go through a very severe challenge, basically in terms of the health of her body. And at the end of it, she said, if this had not happened to me, how would I have recognized that I have so much ego, you know? And ego is one of those tricky little things that it whispers in your ear what it thinks you want to hear, and even makes you say things. It's like the ego is my last ditch attempt, even at protecting. I use my ego to protect my sense of self, that it acts like a security for me. And, you know, although we all know everything in the deepest part of ourselves, but in order to manifest it and simultaneously to deal with the dust that has accumulated through lifetimes, then I need the light of wisdom, the light of truth that will make that difference for me. And so just seeing how, so there's one thing where this morning we were referencing this idea, which I think comes from India, although I think people accept it as a spiritual truth now, that everything has a gift in it. Every untoward situation has a gift. But I was seeing the flip side of that, that sometimes the gift itself can create the problem. That through my karma, I have the gift of beauty, or I have the gift of a good intellect, but then I have the arrogance of those things. And so where the gift becomes the storm in a sense. And so on the one hand, it sounds like, wow, am I so complicated? Am I so complex? You are and you aren't. And so the idea is that in meditation, I connect myself with the one who is the least complex and yet has the most depth, you know, and that is the supreme source of energy. And so that will mirror to me the truth that is myself, and that then I want to bring into manifestation. Something else I've been thinking about in terms of, you know, that sometimes too you will find that it's not even always the big things in your life that prevent you from being light, but sometimes it's the little things, it's the niggly things where you can instantly go from feeling light and joyful to being irritated or to being angry or being annoyed. And I have to understand where that comes from. And so there are things in us. Did I inherit it from my parents, from my family, from my tribe? Or was it a karma from before? Again, you know, it's like somebody was saying the other day how they had given somebody, out of the goodness of their heart, the person was in a little bit of a difficult situation, and they gave them $5,000. And the person didn't do what they were supposed to do with it, nor did they give it back, and they just kind of disappeared. And so this person was saying how her take on the world, that there is a divine justice, if you like, and that although she may not see it, but that person will have to pay at some point. And so I asked her, well, have you ever thought of the other side of it, which is maybe you were the one who had to pay. Maybe you owed that one. So how do you know when it's easy to look and say they did the wrong thing, but it could be, and so this is something in our understanding of karma was like, okay, maybe I did something that necessitated my losing this because I may have done something wrong with money, and whether in this lifetime or in a previous existence. And so for me, one of the things that, and it has been a teaching from I was a little girl, and now I understand it even better in the context of spirituality. And what my mom used to always say was, what's for you won't go by you. What's for you won't go by you. In other words, if it's meant to come to me, all the people in power in the world cannot prevent that thing from happening. And if it's not meant to be for me, then nothing I can do is going to make it be mine at that moment. And so seeing the whole thing as a huge play, right? And what we're not aware of is, how sometimes whoever's in your circumstances, whoever is part of your group or tribe, that they're not there accidentally, and that at some level you have the choice, and you must never surrender, your right to choose. But you very often have imposed a role on them as to whether they will be the good guy or the bad guy. I was again talking to someone the other day, and it was they had a difficult situation with a group of people, right? And from their perspective, they had difficulty, and there was sorrow being experienced, etc. But nonetheless, they were going to go back into the gathering again. And the way they were thinking about it and the heaviness that had come, they were projecting into the future. And when you're projecting often into the future, what you are doing, you become the director of everybody else's drama. And you hand out scripts to everyone. This is what they're going to say. This is what she's thinking. This is what they're going to do. And you don't realize you are actually handing them the script. And the essential script that you're handing them puts you in the position very often of the victim, And then when you do meet those people, that if they behave in a certain way, you will feel justified and say, you see, I told you that's what they were going to say. You see, I told you that's what their attitude was going to be. But actually, the truth of it is, you're the director of the drama, and you made them behave like that. It was your energy, rather, that was imposed upon them and had them interact or react with you in a particular way. And so it's that time now where I can provide myself with a new script. And by so doing, I will no longer try to write the script for everybody else, but I will accept and be okay with everybody else's script, you know? And so if I'm not happy with other people's script, by and large, I'm not happy with my own script either, you know? And so then this thing of you know, where the choice comes in, how bright are the lights on my stage, you know? Or is it always dim and dark and scary? And that something can appear out of that corner that frightens me, you know, some old thing? Or is the light fully lit so that there is clarity? And you have to ask the question, or one has to ask the question, why have I inserted misery into my own script? It is not my nature. Do I get some pleasure from it? And can I rewrite the lines from a more elevated place? Because a little bit of that, or maybe a lot of it, is to do with not feeling good about our own selves, is to do with feeling we don't measure up and that I don't deserve something better. And if that's the feeling, then what is it you're going to attract towards yourself? You're going to attract situations and people that will make you feel even less worthy. Or if you're walking around with the heaviness of guilt on your shoulders, you're going to find somebody to punish you, you know? And so it's like that even if for nobody else, I have to have the light on, you know, for my own self. And it's a illuminating journey. It requires a little bit of courage, and maybe curiosity to begin with. But, you know, once on the path, that, you know, move on, as they say, because, you know, the destination is fixed at some level for your soul. And that fixed destination, paradoxically, is from where you started the journey. And that is from a place of light, from the home of light, in relationship with the light. And so that it's a guarantee. And the whole thing is, you know, for me, lightness, not even the question of deep happiness, that's one thing, but when you're light as a traveler, then you can move much faster, you know. If you've got bags and baggages and what have you, then either you're going to have to find some kind of conveyance to take all of those things, you know, it's going to slow you down. And so when there's awareness and you have a set of spiritual principles to guide you, then you're ready to deal with whatever comes along. You also have an inbuilt appreciation of time. And when there's a heaviness, when there's any form of negativity, then it's not a sauna. I'm not supposed to stay there. You know, I want to get out of that situation as quickly as possible because I want to keep moving. And the tacit agreement is that as long as I keep moving, then whatever comes towards me will also move on very, very quickly. And so this just would be like a, you know, a few thoughts that this thing of needing a set of spiritual principles in order to process everything by. But what happens so often, you have a situation, you have a difficulty, you start talking to everybody else, and does it get any better? No, no, it just expands. It gets fatter, in other words. And it's like as if, you know, it stays down here. It's that gravity keeps it down here. Whereas as soon as you think of the light, I am light, you begin to rise. Your awareness and your attitude and your commitment to the light comes into play. And then, you know, like the bird that you can see from up above. And it's like, why am I wasting my time with all that dense, heavy energy? That this is where I want to be. I want to be in that that place of seeing clearly and remaining, you know, unaffected. I think there's a probably one of the Greek myths, was it Hydra and Hercules? I don't remember. And where, you know, she kept emerging all these tentacles or whatever, and every time he would cut off, another one would appear. And until ultimately, you know, he was aware of the light and he bowed down. And then she disappeared because there was the recognition that so many of these things were coming from fear, you know, and that that the fear increased the fear and compounded the situation. And so let the light do its work. You know, what do you do when you're switching on the light? Why? Want to remove the darkness. I want to see, I can see clearly now what I need to see. And then I'll know what the next step has to be. So, will we leave it there? I think we have a few minutes meditation. Is that all right? To proceed with some meditation. Okay. All that is light beckons. The invitation come into the light. Everything is changed by the light. In the light, there are no enemies. There are no difficulties. The light reflects me in my true and original identity. And to access that light, just a thought, that moves me from the realm of all that is material and subject to those laws, and takes me to a dimension that's transcendent. The energy is so subtle. It lifts me out of my skin, or at least makes me feel completely weightless. There's such comfort and the light that wraps itself around me and holds me. Cherishes me. No words, no arms, I feel like I am in my natural dimension. I am light. And I have entered the domain of light. To be with the one who exudes light. Light, meeting light, light, merging in light. I am home. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Wadi. That was beautiful. And your sharing was really from the heart. I could feel everything. My note was filled with all the notes.
Thank
And
you very much. Thank you all for coming.
thank you so much. And I really liked the part where you said that we have to turn the light on fully to see the dust, remove it, and then see things clearly. Thank you so much. And I would also like to thank everybody else for joining us this evening. We will be playing a beautiful song for all of you, and there'll be a slide on the screen with the upcoming programs. So feel free to take a picture if you like and come back and join us for all our exciting programs. Om Shanti and have a wonderful evening.
Om Shanti.
The things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I'm not the mistakes that I have made, or any of the things that cause me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. 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 I am not the color of my eyes. I am not the skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. Ooh. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all.